Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's weekly podcast. A couple weeks ago, when it was just Kyle and I said if we had a more robust budget, we could pay for the licensing for just the two of us from Bill Withers or Will Smith. This week, just the two of us would describe the dynamic duo here between myself, John DiCarlo, and Declan Landis, who is already a week or two into his Inquirer internship now, right?
A week is generous. I'd say a couple days.
Yeah.
A couple days in.
How's it feel?
It's really cool. I'm not gonna lie. I wrote up a little story yesterday, went to Stan Drayton's press conference, which I'm sure we'll talk to in a bit. Stay tuned. You know what I'm saying? And they asked me to write something up, and then I got a tweet this morning that said, hey, cool to see you in the paper. I was like, huh? And so I went to the local 7-Eleven and purchased the paper, and sure enough, there I was. So it was a cool feeling. It was a very cool feeling, very cool job. And I'm excited to see where it leads to.
Continuing the great tradition of Temple students interning at the Philadelphia Inquirer. So you can
OurScoop.com.
Yeah. So in addition to following Declan's work here at OurScoop.com and The Scoop, you can also follow him at the Philadelphia Inquirer, along with Samuel O'Neill, who's also the editor-in-chief of the Temple News. So yeah, we got a good show ahead for you guys. We will talk, of course, about Temple season opener, which is coming up this Friday in Norman, Oklahoma. Temple's taking on number 16, Oklahoma. We'll talk about all the key matchups for you, answer your mailbag questions. The Scoop, as always, is brought to you all by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us. Temple Law grads will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win. So in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's greenspans-law.com. Again, you'll hear from Mike later on, Mike Greenspan, with his weekly mailbag tip. Declan, on or around this date, before I get to that, did you see the tweet that I got from Mama Landis, where she essentially said, Danny Kaye, really? I mean,
yeah, not a good look for you.
Throwing some sass at me.
Not a good, everybody has a tough week. Everybody has an off week, She's an active listener, just showing you that she was listening. And, I think it's time to prove some people wrong this week. Maybe we can go get a couple in a row here.
Oh, all right.
that was constructive feedback. What are you talking about? Like you were like shocked.
She was upset with me.
I don't think it was upset. It didn't come off as
Danny Kaye, really?
I think she was.
I'm up for the challenge.
You're
gonna respond by asking, going back to 987 AD.
On this day in 36 million BC.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, we'll see how I do.
I believe in you.
This date, Declan Landis, what do you have for us this week?
I choose to believe in you because today we're looking at August 27th, as that's the date this episode will drop. And we'll start, as always, with a couple birthdays. Why not? Maybe,
Real quick. Speaking of birthdays, now we're recording on Monday, August 26th, the birthday of Temple men's basketball coach Adam Fisher.
Happy birthday, Coach.
And also a buddy of mine who Johnny teases me about our friendship for how long we've been friends. Todd Zalecki.
Todd! Happy birthday, Todd.
August 26th. Todd also has a great Phillies podcast called The Philly Show with Ruben Morrow and Jim Salisbury. Great podcast. I would suggest checking it out. Also, the birthday of Philadelphia Inquirer Eagles beat reporter EJ Smith, also a Temple grad.
I didn't know that. Happy birthday, EJ.
Big birthday day.
Yeah.
And also, I believe it's my buddy Brian Beecham, who is an associate AD at Villanova, Temple grad, former Temple basketball manager. So huge monster day, August 26th, even though we're looking at the 27th because the pod is going to drop on the 27th. I'll say this real quick and then turn this back over to you, Declan. We're going to try to get into the rhythm this year of recording every Monday and getting you the podcast early in the week on Tuesday, so you're fresh off the weekend. Get us your mailbag questions, and then the pod has a little bit more shelf life. So back to you, Declan.
Thank you so much. Because you mentioned a couple birthdays that we already, we've talked about. We've established happy birthday to all of those mentioned. We'll also go back to on this day on 1908. This American president was born. Actually become very relevant this year with a lot of comparisons to the end of his presidency and the beginning of the one after him, specifically with the DNC.
Truman?
No, not quite. This man took office after his president that he was vice president under was killed.
LBJ.
Lyndon B. Johnson. It's okay. It's only American history. On this day in 1961,
Shut up.
this American
I didn't mean
fashion
that. I'm sorry.
designer, this American fashion designer and film director was born. Very, very famous fashion designer, I would say. He was very famous for helping revive Gucci during his tenure as the creative director, and then started his own line in 2005.
Started his own line in 2005.
Yeah.
It's not Gianni Versace because it's 2005. Is it, or is it?
I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
The only hint I can think to give you, it's two short names, and the last name is also a car brand, car dealership, whatever you want to call it. I don't care.
Oh God, I don't. I feel like you're going to say the name, and I
You
don't know.
probably will. This strikes me as something you would wear, in your time. Tom Ford. Tom Ford.
Tom Ford?
Tom Ford.
Would not have gotten that.
It's okay. On this day in 1776, a lot went down this year.
Yeah.
During the
American Revolution.
bingo, British forces under General William Howe defeated George Washington and the American Continental Army at this battle taking place in a famous part of New York.
Oh God. Yorktown.
No,
Man,
not Short Peninsula, John.
I'm not. This just isn't my month.
John, it's
My
not Short
season.
Peninsula, John.
It's not what?
Short Peninsula.
Long Peninsula?
Oh, Long Island, John.
Oh, geez.
Long.
Oh, Long Island?
Yeah, Battle of Long Island.
Did they
It's not
battle
remembered because the U.S. lost.
Did they battle it out at Jones Beach?
I don't know. I'll ask them if they were in the
Maybe in
Hamptons,
an Islanders
where
game
they were
in
at.
Uniondale?
They could have been, man. Unfortunately, Johnny's not here to say, oh, so I mean, there's no point in looking it up. But on this day in 1964, this musical Disney classic based off a P.L. Travers book made its debut, its world premiere in Los Angeles. And this very famous actress was making her screen debut.
Mary Poppins?
Wow! Yes!
Did I get
Let's
it?
go, John. Let's go.
I got it. All right. Here we go.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And that was on this day.
So it was 1 for 4.
Hey, man. I didn't think you were going to pull it off.
250.
You did. You killed it. Wow.
Um,
But you got the last one.
I'm a 250 hitter this week. Could be better.
You want one more? There is one more. I just went
Yeah,
out of
why
order.
not? Let's make me a 200 hitter.
Okay, I believe in you. On this day in 1997, this very famous humanitarian passed away. They later became a Catholic saint.
Mother Teresa?
Mother Teresa. That's 2 for 5, sir.
Right.
That's 2 for 5. We'll take that.
All right. The ultimate judge here is Mama Landis.
She'll be happy you got Mother Teresa.
Yeah, good Catholic boy.
Yeah.
Getting that one. Declan, you were at Stan Drayton's Sunday weekly press conference. So again, we mentioned this last week. Most of the time, Stan's going to be on a Monday schedule where he meets the media at noon. But because Temple's playing on Friday night this week, Stan spoke to reporters on Sunday afternoon. The big storyline to come out of it was that He said, I'm not naming a starting quarterback. And look, I'll be utterly shocked if it's not Forrest Brock, but said he's not naming a starting quarterback. He said, we have a clear number one, number two, number three. And we'll play this audio for you just in case you haven't heard it yet. But just wants to have them continue to compete with each other. The cynical, grumpy fan is going to say, what's the use? There's no competitive advantage by not telling Oklahoma who you're starting. And I get that, but City's not naming a starting quarterback. Before we play that audio, just general takeaways from yesterday. What came out of it? Anything of note, or is it kind of just time to get some new audio of these guys after a game?
Hey, I mean, you could view it that way. I think the thing that I took away most, and obviously, like you mentioned, the headlines, the quarterbacks, and then the depth chart came out after you hear the 1, 2, 3 line. And, it seems like all signs are pointing to Forrest Brock, which we've talked about for weeks, makes total sense. The thing I took away from it was he explicitly named DJ Woodbury. He
Yeah.
explicitly named Andres Keaton.
Yep.
That was pretty much it in terms
Yeah.
of starters.
Yeah.
Like everything else was seemingly on the table. He mentioned specifically the running backs were going to be by committee. The defensive line was going to be by committee. Didn't sound like the same for the offensive line, but he was happy about the depth and the health of the room, which makes total sense. We could tell that was an area they focused on in recruiting. Um, he mentioned a couple names at linebacker, but like I mentioned, DJ Woodbury is the only person he mentioned was starting. So I think it's interesting that he chose to go that direction because sure the depth chart is one thing, like you can look at that, but hearing him talk, I don't think they're certain on who is going to be in what spot. And I think it's still very much an open competition for a lot of the spots on the field. So that was something I was interested in because you can do that two ways. One, maybe people didn't earn that starting spot yet, or two, they just had too many people that they can rotate in and out. I think it's that. I don't think it would be the first one. So I think if you're an Owls fan, you can feel pretty decent about that. And again, you're not going to know until week 2, right? Because you can't take too much away from this game. But I think that was probably the most interesting thing because we all kind of figured the quarterbacks thing, at least I did, that the quarterbacks scenario was going to go down the way it did just based on previous weeks. But it definitely it'll be good to hear next week after seeing them on the field. We have maybe a little more questions answered. Even though I'm sure we'll break down, how much you can take away, how much you can't. So,
And if you're looking at, the depth chart is public now. It's up on the official athletics website at owlsports.com. Again, the first play of every game is the starters are like in whatever formation the team comes out in. So who starts isn't really as important as who gets the most snaps, who finishes. Not too many surprises on the depth chart. Again, if you're looking just directly at the depth chart, Kevin Terry, redshirt freshman, is listed as a starter at left tackle. Luke Watson at left guard. Grayson Maines, the center. We talked a lot about him. Stan said it was his job to lose. Wisdom Corshi at right guard, the veteran of that group. And then Melvin Ciani listed at the starting right tackle position with Jackson Pruitt as his backup, which I thought was kind of interesting. Jackson Pruitt's also listed as the third string center. And then on the depth chart, they're in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. Again, not saying they're going to open the first play of the game like that, with James Delapesca at the one spot backed up by Peter Clark, and then Landon Morris backed up by Reese Clark. Dante Wright, John Adams listed as the starting receivers. And then at quarterback, it's Forrest Brock, Evan Simon, Tyler Douglas listed 1, 2, 3 with separated by or. And then at running back, you got Jaquez Smith, and then EJ Wilson or Antoine Littleton. Defensive end spot, Cameron Stewart, Demerick Morris at nose guard backed up by Alan Hay, Latrell Jean, the other defensive tackle spot, Trey Thomas in that jack position as a pass rusher. DJ Woodbury, we'll hear from him a little bit later on the show. At middle linebacker, Eric Stewart at that will linebacker position with Tyree Alulu at a true freshman out of North Allegheny High School on the two deep there, listed there with Antoine Santiago, Elijah Darraville in the out spot, Andreas Keaton, Javier Morton at the safety positions, and then Torrey Richardson and Jamel Johnson listed as the starting corners. Maddox Trujillo handling both the place kicking and kickoff duties, and he's listed as the starting kickoff specialist ahead of Carl Harden, Dante Atten, a punter. And so not too many surprises on the depth chart. But we'll play real quick. This was Stan's opening statement, and part of what he's saying here is about the starting quarterback spot and him saying what I'm not going to do is name a starting quarterback. And we'll just play this audio just so you hear it, because people were talking about that yesterday.
What I'm not going to do today is announce a starting quarterback. I have a great competitive situation going on in that room right now, and I don't want to lose that edge. It's an iron sharpens iron mindset, and everybody in that room is getting better. There's a clear 1, 2, and 3. Okay. That being said, I'm just going to probably make that decision game day. Our guys are getting better because of the competition in the room, and there's a lot of admiral respect that they have for one another. That I just want to keep that going. So that's where we are with that.
And let's get into some of these key matchups here. Again, as of now, on Monday afternoon, Temple, I believe, is a 43-point underdog. So again, this is an Oklahoma team that was second in the Big 12 last year. Really good roster. They are now heading into their first year in the SEC with a lot to prove. This game is ripe for the Sooners coming out and wanting to make a statement, type of game where a program like Oklahoma would want to say, we want to emphatically cover the spread here to make a statement coming out. Let's assume that Forrest Brock is going to take that first snap. Again, I'll be utterly shocked if he doesn't. He's facing a very, very good Oklahoma secondary. They led the nation in interceptions per game last year with 1.5 per game. Billy Bowman had 6 at the one safety position. Woody Washington had a team-high 7 pass breakups at left corner. Kendall Dolby had 2 at their cheetah position, which is essentially like their third safety. Dante Wright mentioned him today and said, we're looking out for number 15. We'll take a look at that one right there. How do you think, Declan, if it's Forrest Brock or if Evan Simon gets in later, or if the game's really out of hand, we're so used to over the past couple of seasons, EJ Warner, throwing the ball deep and, getting some chunk plays and stuff like that. And I know this is the biggest no kidding statement, but if they can, another key matchup, of course, is if this offensive line can move Oklahoma's front 7, front 8, however they come out, and make it so that it's not such an unbalanced attack. Do you think Temple's going to shy away from throwing the ball deep a lot against this secondary? Again, it's probably the best defense they're going to face all year. A very good Oklahoma secondary, a very opportunistic secondary. Do you think this is going to be more about, like, as long as they have time to throw, getting the ball to the tight ends as opposed to chucking it downfield a little bit more?
I mean, I think you could say that about any game this season. I think this team is more equipped for that sort of short passing game in the first place, because it's like you mentioned, they don't have the arm that they had last year. And I think that's not a bad thing, because I think there are a lot of playmakers on the team that if you get them the ball, they can get some yards after the catch and that kind of thing. But I do agree, because every indication seems to be that they want to implement the run game more. I mean, you get a guy like Antoine Littleton in who can pick up that short yardage, a guy that they have said they haven't had a runner like him with the kind of skill that he has. So I think that could be sort of an interesting development for this team if Joquez Smith takes that next step and becomes a little more reliable than he was last year as well. But that offensive line is going to be a key factor in that. And I mean, there's no better time to test how good your team is than against the best of the best, right? So I think it does make sense, because they have at least slightly more or slightly less of a disadvantage if you're going to the trenches and trying to use that quick passing game and not letting their playmakers in the secondary affect the game like they could. I think it would just be kind of smart to implement that. And then we'll probably, I would say, likely see that the rest of the year, depending on who earns that starting job.
Yeah. And again, the running game and the offensive line play have to go hand in hand. So, again, can a guy like Wisdom Kwashi move things on the inside? Will they really rotate as many as 7 or 8 guys into the game? Again, it's very early on. One of the guys that they seemed high on in this class is Mouse Apollo, a JUCO player, but he's not listed as a starter right now. We'll see. But again, anything they can do, any positive plays they can put on film where Chris Weezham might be able to say, we won that snap and we were able to run the ball a little bit. Even if
just any bit of confidence too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we will see there. Another big matchup to pay attention to. And I think this is this goes hand in hand with the running game. That offensive line versus like guys like Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams at nose tackle for Oklahoma, like just making sure that Forrest Brock, Evan Simon, Tyler Douglas, maybe whoever's playing quarterback is not getting gutted up the middle, that they can run the ball a little bit. And then another one I think that you look at is Temple's front seven versus Oklahoma's offensive line. And their offensive line has a new center in Brandon Hickman. He's an SMU transfer, so it's a player that they faced last year. Of course, they got blown out by SMU. Jacob Sexton is moving inside to guard from tackle. And then Fabechi Wiwu is another guy. He's new. He was at North Texas last year. He's at the other guard spot. So, again, very good Oklahoma roster, but they're like a lot of other programs out there where, they get players from the portal, they lose players to the portal, especially at quarterback. That Dylan Gabriel, a player that, of course, Temple fans saw when he was at UCF, jumps over to Oregon, and now they're facing, Jackson Arnold, who was a very highly recruited quarterback, had 2 touchdowns, 3 picks in his one lone start against Arizona in a bowl game last year where Dylan Gabriel had already gone. But those matchups in the trenches, again, this could turn out to be a very good Oklahoma offensive line, but it's been some transition there. When you look at specific skill players, again, we talked to DJ Woodbury today, talked to Dante Wright, talked to Andreas Keaton. Especially Keaton and Wright weren't really in the mood to talk specifics about certain players. The team definitely, again, this is a small sample size of the team. The 3 guys that were made available to us today, it was more so like, again, I'm paraphrasing here, we control what we can control, go into the environment, handle the environment. One guy that opened up a little bit more, and a cool story on this team, one of the single-digit winners is DJ Woodbury, a guy whose season came to an end at Tulsa last year, and things kind of could have gone one way or the other for him, and he bounced out of it and came back under single digit. Now he's a middle linebacker. He's a father. So if you look at him on the roster, it says DJ Woodbury Sr. There's a DJ Woodbury Jr., his son Deuce. I had the chance to ask him a little bit about that. So here's just a small part of my conversation with DJ Woodbury from just a little while ago at media availability today.
In that one full game of film that you could look at with Jackson Arnold, I mean, Arizona kind of limited him, but he did carry it 11 times and it was pressured a little bit. What do you know about his ability to just kind of tuck the ball and run with it? Is that something that you guys are going to anticipate too?
Well, he's a very good player. He can move a little bit. So, we got to game plan that. But also, I just feel like we have a great defense. I feel like we have a lot of speed rather than previous years. We have a great defense all around. So I think we'll try our best to limit him and limit his abilities.
How would you describe Gavin Sawchuk's running style from what you've seen on film? Does he move well? You see him more as like a bruiser who runs over people. What have you seen from him?
He can move well. He's a good football player. He does what he's supposed to do. He's a good player. I don't see nothing too crazy, but we feel like we have a good game plan for him.
And for as talented as their roster is, they're just like anybody else. They've had people coming and going through the portal too. I mean, like Brandon Hickman's their centers from SMU. They've got 2 new guards. Is that something you guys are like keenly aware of and saying, okay, they're still going to be trying to get their rhythm in the middle of the line, just like you guys are? Is that something that you guys are keying in on, honing in on with like some of the transition there?
Yeah, our coaching staff has been on everything. They've seen that the line got revamped. They've seen the weapons that they brought in. We just been going over it constantly, saying, see, this might be a weakness. This might be our advantage. We just trying to piece it together. We know they still trying to hone in and see where they are. And again, we have a good defense, a brand new defense, and we're trying to see where we are. So it's just going to come down to who executes. That's going to be the main game plan.
When you got hurt last year, you're out for it against Tulsa. You're out for the rest of the season, and for you to bounce back, not that it wasn't there before, but really earn a ton of respect from the coaches to seemingly like really find your groove in the middle there. Could have gone a different way if you'd really gotten down about being hurt. What does it mean to you to just bounce back and earn the single digit and really have like as prominent a role as you have now in the defense?
I mean, it means everything. Last year when I got hurt, obviously a lot of people think I could have took it as an L, but no, I really didn't. I took it as like a learning point. What can I learn from this? What can I gain? I just got to sit back and just get smarter, become a smarter football player, and I just feel like the coaches have seen the work I put in on and off the field, it's paying off, so I'm someone that's good with pressure.
You have a son, right?
Yes, Deuce.
What's it like being a father and just already being a role model for him? I mean, your face is just lighting up now just talking.
Yeah, that's my guy. There's no better feeling. I'm thinking about it right now, just the time we spend together is this. It's like the world is going when I'm with him, and I just cherish everything about him, and I thank God for it. Like, he's been a blessing in my life.
How much when you're practicing or playing, I guess, like being out there Friday, like how much does he just drift into your mind where you're like, I am literally living for and playing for someone else now other than, he's like just a huge, huge responsibility now in your life?
I don't think it's like a time besides football. I don't think about him. I think about him all the time. Whatever I'm doing, I want to know what he's doing. What's he thinking? What's he doing? Because now he's become at the age where he's crawling. He's about to start walking. So, and then he's finally saying "Dad." So it's been a great experience. Life was good.
You mentioned basketball. You were a really good basketball player. I was talking to John last week for our podcast, and how much does basketball? Obviously, being a multi-sport athlete isn't new for a lot of guys, but like, how much of the agility in basketball do you bring into playing football? Like some middle linebackers kind of like plotting, but, a lot of people who saw you play, you were a pretty athletic guy in high school in South Jersey. How much of the basketball athleticism translates into what you're doing now in football?
I mean, moving side to side, backpedaling a little bit, it translates. It's almost the same thing. Basketball, football is not really that far different. As being a point guard, like I am at the mic, I'm leading, telling them what to do, setting up the defense, what they're doing, it's almost the same thing. Just a different sport.
Is there anything fun about going into this game where you guys are underdogs and it seems like the guys are adopting this mentality of like, we just have to control what we can control. We're respectful of who Oklahoma is, but does it kind of help you focus even more when it's like you kind of know what the dialogue's going to be and you guys are just staying super process oriented? Does it help focus you more when you're going into a game like this?
Not really. It's another week. I mean, it helps focus when you got a great group behind you just locked in as much as you are. I feel like this is an amazing group. And I can't wait till we can display it for y'all and show the world what type of group this is. So it's going to be fun each and every week.
Prediction time here, Declan. We'll try to how do we want to do predictions this year? You just want to pick the winner outright? You want to go against the spread? Just outright winners? Let's not make it too.
We can do both, I think you leave it up to the interpretation.
Okay. All right. Well, again, this is a tough matchup for Temple. Jackson Arnold. We haven't even talked really about Gavin Sawchuk, who's their returning leading rusher, 794 yards, 9 touchdowns last year. So they've got some good skill position players. They're big. Again, that secondary, I think, is going to be the really tough matchup for Temple. So if the line is at 43 right now, and there's some overlap here with the, I don't know if there's specifically a question in the mailbag about it, but I think we're both going to safely predict that Temple's not winning this game. You think they cover the spread or no?
43?
Mm-hmm.
I think they come close. I'll say 45. But I think Oklahoma's just on another level.
Yeah. You got a final score prediction?
John, I'd be happy to think about it a little bit. How about 63?
I have 63. That's what I wrote down.
Wow, look at us.
What do you have for Temple?
I think they get 63. Minus 45. whatever 63 minus 45 is. That's my score prediction.
63-18? Is that the final score?
Oh, dang. Okay, I'll go 63-17.
I was going to go 63-14 for
There you go.
the late touchdown. And again, I think we've been saying this for the last few weeks. I think if you're Temple, you try to come out of this game healthy. You try to come out of this game looking at some moments where you could say, hey, got a first down here, got a first down there. Maddox Trujillo maybe kicked a field goal or two where it was loud. Again, I don't know that he's going to be facing any big time pressure kicks. If he is, then we've got a hell of a story to report on. But Al Golden used to talk a lot about sudden change, sudden change, sudden change. How are you going to adapt and react when things suddenly go wrong? And that was such a hurdle that this program years ago, when he was trying to bring them out of the doldrums in 2006, a hurdle that they had to get over. If there is any way where this game stays competitive in the first half and into the third quarter, it's going to be, if Temple, defers, wins the toss, defers, or if Oklahoma wins the toss and they take it and they go right down and score on like a 2-play, 75-yard drive, and that second play is like a big touchdown pass. How does Temple react to that? If they can take and weather that first or second punch, and then they're in the game at halftime, then it has a chance to be respectable. I mean, if you're looking for like a boxing reference, like when Rocky is in there against Ivan Drago and he's just getting hit and hit and hit, how much does he weather those punches, and can he cut back? Can he cut the Russian? The Russian's cut and it's a bad cut. Like, does Temple have that type of punch in them? We'll see. But yeah, I think of this as like a 63-14 game. Again, we'll have our game day preview later on in the week. We'll have more preview materials for you as we head into Temple's season opener. Let's look at the mailbag here. We got some mailbag questions to get to. And again, before we do, our weekly tip from Mike Greenspan, Temple Law graduate of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. Again, as we say every week, Mike is the best injury lawyer out there that you could hope to have, but Mike also wants to keep you safe on the road before you even need his services. So here is Mike Greenspan's weekly tip for staying safe on the road.
Hey, Temple fans, school is back in session. And with that means you're going to find school buses on your way to and from work or just driving around. Did you know that in New York, an estimated 50,000 people illegally stop school buses each day? That's unsafe for them, and it's unsafe for our kids. So when you come across a school bus that's stopped, stop. Do not try to pass a school bus. And remember, when you see that arm coming down on the side of the bus telling you that the school bus is stopped, there's probably going to be a camera on it. So if you pass a stopped school bus, you're breaking the law and you're going to get caught. Don't do that. Arrive alive, and let's protect our kids. Go Owls.
So let's hop into the mailbag here. 4 questions that I know of right now we can get to. First one comes from Temple Tough. Off the Hook 3 is the Twitter handle here. Long time Scoop listener. Appreciate the question here. 2 questions. First one, on a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are we that Temple football scores an offensive touchdown against Oklahoma? How confident are you, Declan, that Temple scores at least one offensive touchdown against Oklahoma?
At least one?
Yes.
I'll give it an 8. I think they get 1.
You give it an 8?
Well, I mean, clearly I thought they get 2. Yeah, I give it an 8. I think they will.
Out of 10? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what time in the game. Like, I don't know who's going to be on the field. But I do think they get at least 1 because, I mean, quite frankly, I thought they got 2, or I thought they'd get 2. So
yeah, I'd say I'm about in that range, fairly confident, maybe 8 out of 10. Scale of 0 to 10, how confident are we that Temple scores an offensive touchdown? I'd go with like 7 there. Second question. Does Temple men's basketball have enough talent and depth to make it to the dance? The schedule offers no favors, so they'll probably have to win the American Athletic Conference tournament. Let's get to the second part of that question first. I think we talked about this in a previous episode. How much weight this holds, I don't know, but their schedule is stacked with a lot of non-conference neutral site games. And so I agree that like the schedule doesn't play out in like a John Chaney anytime, anywhere you're playing a bunch of just stacked non-conference teams where, you win one or two of those and you're in. I don't know that they necessarily have to win the American Athletic Conference tournament, but does Temple have enough talent and depth to make it to the NCAA tournament? I believe they do. I believe the roster is better and deeper than it was last year. This is on paper, but if they stay healthy, meaning if Jamal Mashburn Jr. stays healthy, Linger III stays healthy, if Jameel Brown stays healthy, that's a really good backcourt nucleus. I like what they've added in Elijah Gray. I think that Dylan Battie will give them a tangible boost this year. So I do think that they have the talent and the depth to make it to the NCAA tournament. To answer the second part of your question again, I don't know that it's going to have to be winning the American Athletic Conference tournament. I could see a scenario based on how their schedule goes and plays out, or maybe they make it to the championship game and their net is in a good enough spot, and Lord knows what the committee will be thinking this year, but I think they've got a shot. I think they've got a real shot. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've kind of talked about it, like you said, but they have a lot more depth than they did last year, and they were a game away. So I think they shored up their roster a lot more. Anything's possible, and I think the interesting part will be how their non-conference schedule lines up with, the net rankings and all that whatnot. Whether or not that goes their way or not. So I think the non-conference will be really important this year, maybe more so than last year. But yeah, I think they have a chance.
Yeah, it also depends too, again, who in conference is, if you have how good is Memphis? Does a win over Memphis do something for you? But we'll have to see. But I think the talent is there. One from the message board from Temple fan Al. If Temple beats Oklahoma, will that get us into the conversation for upgrading conferences? Excuse me. No, it doesn't automatically get you into the conversation, but what it does is get you into the national conversation. Now, if Temple goes down to Norman, Oklahoma, and upsets Oklahoma, you can talk about the Penn State win. They had, they beat West Virginia on the road in 1998, 99-ish. I should have looked this up beforehand. But they go down and win this game on Friday. I think it's the biggest win in the history of the program. Bigger than any bowl game win. I think even bigger than that Penn State win. Obviously, big one. Sold out Lincoln Financial Field, but it was at home. And yes, they were underdogs in that game, but they had the wherewithal to win that game. They were the better coaching staff that day. Phil Snow coached circles around James Franklin. Christian Hackenberg was referred to as Christian Sackenberg. They had a chance. They believed they were supposed to win that game. If Temple goes down and upsets Oklahoma on Friday night, what it does is get you into the national conversation, and obviously a big, big time way. I don't think all of a sudden the Big 12 or the ACC come to you and say, hey, it's a lot more complicated than that. This thing happens at a board of trustee level. They're looking at infrastructure. Do you have the resources to be in this conference? Are you set up to be in this conference? So no, it doesn't automatically get them into the conversation. Not that I know, although conference realignment continues to surprise me every year. Certainly gets you into the national conversation, I will say. Next question from Twitter comes from Matt Scarano, and Twitter handle is mscars391. What are your most optimistic/realistic takes going into the Oklahoma game?
We kind of already talked about it, but I think the offensive line will hold up okay. I think they'll at least look better than last year. And to be honest, if they come out looking healthier and it looks like they can move the ball a little bit in the running game, I think that speaks volumes to compared to where they were last year. And I'll talk about the other line too, because I think if the defensive line gets like a couple sacks, like one or two, maybe three, I think that's leaps and bounds from where they were last year, because that means they're generating a little bit of pressure. It takes a little pressure off of that secondary that looks completely different than it did. So I would say if the lines play well on either side, even if it's just like a series or if it's a quarter, things like that, it doesn't have to be the whole game. But if they show flashes of what they could be this year, I think that's something you can take, especially into, we've kind of hinted at it, but you're starting your conference play next week. So if you can take any sort of positive momentum into Annapolis next weekend, I think that's very, very good.
I would agree. And need to your point there, just in terms of stringing together a good series or two. We talked about the tight ends before. Does Landon Morris go out over the middle of the field, catch a pass, and get away from an SEC linebacker? Can whether they're Big 12 linebackers last year, now they're SEC linebackers this year. Do you see some get up from Landon Morris and Reese Clark? Can Dante Wright go up against that secondary that is very opportunistic, knows how to get turnovers? Can a Dante Wright go out there, settle in, run a good route, get some yards after the catch? Does Antonio Jones look healthy? Does John Adams look healthy? Again, you're going to have to piecemeal some things together. Those are some things I think you could look optimistically at before you get to week 2 down at Navy. Our friend Ray Dunn checking in, producer at 97.5, the producer of the new Mike Missinelli show.
Hi, Ray.
Hello, Ray. What's the SEC environment you'd most like to experience once? I thought about this because I thought I was maybe going to have a chance, and I looked at the schedule, but it didn't line up. What's the SEC environment that you'd like to experience once?
To me, this is a no-brainer. I think it's LSU. I think the atmosphere. I mean, you bring a live jungle cat onto the field, I'm in. I think it'd be really cool.
The man who's hardly allergic to everything is suddenly getting some.
Well, from a far distance.
Yeah.
How cool is that, right? Like, it gets you fired up. I just think I have a couple of friends that go to LSU. From everything I hear from them, and like just seeing it even on TV, like the raucous environment, I think makes it a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I had LSU too. I was thinking before I looked at the schedule. So tentatively, I'm supposed to go down in late October, early November for the College Media Association fall convention. Going down there. Hopefully, I'm going to try to bring a couple Temple students with me. It's the fall. College Media Association is one of the big, professional organizations for college students, college media. Declan, yeah, we'll see if we can get you down there. The Temple News is a finalist for several Pinnacle Awards, so really proud of them. And I was hoping that maybe while I was down there, you try to do as much benchmarking as you can. If things line up with my schedule this week, I'm going to try to visit the good people who are involved in student media at the University of Oklahoma and try to get over to see them before the game on Friday. LSU's got a good student media program. And for a split second, when Ray asked this question, I thought, was LSU home that Saturday? But they're not. They've got a bye week coming up. So I'd say LSU, the Swamp. I mean, I've heard, Colin Thompson, our friend Colin Thompson, who's been on the Scoop several times. New father, Colin Thompson, would like to congratulate him on that. Congratulations to Colin and Sydney on the birth of their new baby daughter. Colin met his wife at Florida. She's a lacrosse player down there. My apologies, Sydney, if you're listening, I got this wrong. I think lacrosse player, but he's talked about, the atmosphere at Florida down at the Swamp. And again, loved his time at Temple. I think considers himself, he's a Temple graduate, but I think you can't go wrong from what you hear and see between LSU, Florida, Alabama. I've seen Auburn's campus. I've never seen a football game down there, but like that question from Ray. Good stuff. Final question to close us out here. Declan, we're not missing anything from the boards or Twitter, are we?
I looked. We are not missing anything.
Okay. So last one to close us out here from our friend Matt GPT, Matt Deebs on Twitter, another longtime Scoop listener. Appreciate the question here. Any word on DeJuan Black being absent from the depth chart? Expect him to play a big role this year. I think he's going to be out for a few weeks. It is not injury related. I have to confirm this. Declan, nobody asked him about him yesterday, did they?
We didn't know he was left off the depth chart.
Yeah. So, that's right. Yeah, you guys didn't have access to the depth chart yesterday. So
Correct.
I think they're hoping to get him back in 3 to 4 weeks. We'll have to see how that plays out. That's the best I could say there right now. But as we said at the outset of the show, season is off and running. Declan and I have both predicted Temple to lose. No shocker there. Hopefully we'll have Kyle and Johnny with us next week. We'll have to see how the Philly schedule goes for Johnny, because now we're getting into the fall. The Phillies are hitting again.
Thank God.
We'll see. Good series for the Phils out in Kansas City, but hopefully Johnny will be with us next week. And like I said, we're going to do our best to get into a recording on Monday, dropping the pod on Tuesday schedule for you as we get into the thick of football season. Again, don't forget that once basketball recruiting picks up, we will be the best source of recruiting information for you, both football and basketball. And then maybe I will perform better next week or on or around the state, but
I wouldn't make promises you can't keep there.
no, I wouldn't. And I don't want you throwing me layups either, just
no layups.
yeah. So, well, thanks for sticking with us for another episode. For Declan, for Johnny and Kyle, even though they were not with us on the show. Wish
For
you
the
guys,
other interns that aren't on the podcast.
the other interns, Ryan Mack, Zachary Silverstein, Colin Schofield, all of us at Al Scoop. I feel like I'm now starting to wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season. Once I say for all of us at Al
Don't
Scoop.
you dare. It is August. Don't you
I
dare.
know. Yeah, man, Wawa's got pumpkin spice coffee out already, so it's
Crazy. Insane.
getting there. Yeah. Well, hope you guys have a great week. For those of you who are going down to the game, if you're going, hit me up. Let me know. Would love to say hi to you in the parking lot before the game. If you're going to the game, have fun. Heard the atmosphere is really incredible. It's going to be my first time down there covering that game, covering that atmosphere down at the University of Oklahoma. So thanks for sticking with us for another episode. We'll talk to you next week.